Fire it up, footballers. James here from Enemies of the Fire, coming at you with another reaction video. But before I got to that, I just want to ask you a quick question. Do you plan on renewing your MLS Season Pass subscription next year? Because I sure as heck don't. I mean, it feels like the second or even third year in a row where MLS Season Pass is just giving it away. Before this, it was great customers of T-Mobile getting essentially gifted subscriptions. And here, if you are a DraftKings bettor, you were able to put down a $5 bet and get MLS Pass for the rest of the season. What a deal. Especially when it was $99 for all the sickos out there. But let me know in the comments below if you plan to purchase that next year. And let's get into today's topic. Is MLS broken? And of course, we have the amazing, the one and only Eric Winalda to talk about it. And I wanted to react to his video here because he has a lot of great stuff. If you want to go check out the video, it's on Goals TV. Link will be in the description. MLS is broken, but we're going to live react to it here if you want to stay for the discussion. And here we go.
Because today's topic is the schedule. Ta-da! I mean, here we go again, right? Most of the shows that we've done up to this point where I try desperately to explain to people that our schedule is a little off. We start at a bad time and we finish our season at the worst possible time. And there's...
If you think about that, we start in February, March, and we finish in December. That makes sense? Let me know in the comments if you disagree or agree.
Multiple reasons for that, but the weather seems to be everybody's big hang up. All right. Now, I'm gonna try really hard to not be an asshole right now, but I just need to show you this because some people respond better to pictures than they do to words. Everybody sees the world differently. I just want you to see this. All right, this is comparing the latitude of North America with Europe and North Africa. Are we seeing this? Right, go ahead, just for fun, right now as you're watching this, pick out the.
All right, let's dig it. Let's see. Wow. Before we even maneuver over, you could tell that France, Germany, Poland, they're all on the same vector right up here in Canada. And then England, even higher to some degree in some parts of England and in the UK.
Part of the United States where you live. And compare it to what it...
Holy cow. Italy? Yeah, no way is Italy like anything like the Midwest.
Would mean to...
I mean, it seems so much more sunny there, but I mean, they are a coastal, very coastal nation. And here in the Midwest, we're not.
Live in Europe.
Okay, let's take a look at this though right here. So Germany spilling over to North Dakota, it seems, but mostly in Canada. I'm sorry, yeah. And then Poland right next to it, fully in Canada. Most of France seems to be on a similar parallel to Oregon and Washington. That's wild.
Find is basically Germany is in Canada. Canada. That's how high up they are, okay? And if you look at some of the other parts of Europe, whether that's Spain or Portugal, it's pretty much the middle of the country. So when we complain about the weather, right, and we say, okay, well, what does this mean for us? It's impossible. Hey, Eric, have you ever do you know what it's like to live in Chicago? Actually, yes, I played for Chicago. I lived there. I got the hell out of there when it got really cold.
Fire.
Cold, but I know exactly what it's like to live in Illinois. Okay, let's say you live in Chicago. Pick it out, okay? You're basically Croatia, okay? That's where you
that actually somewhat makes sense.
Are, or the middle of Italy.
Weather-wise.
But guess what? The realities of what the weather means to them and to us is only a problem because we have made it a problem. All right, let's look at our schedule, okay? Let's look at the origins of this all over again, okay? People need to understand why we are the way we are. We are different, right? We have a whole bunch of rules and things that we do differently within the structure and all the apparatuses and mechanisms that make Major League Soccer very different. But the fundamental reason why we start in March and end in December is very simple. And
football.
It's about control. Now, I get it. You know, some people out there are going to be like, "Oh, you're some kind of conspiracy theorist." No, I lived it. I was in the room. I was a part of it. And when the league started in 1996, what basically happened was a bunch of NFL owners who were essentially in charge of this looked at that World Cup in 1994 and said, "Holy shit. Did you see that? That was amazing. Did you see the people that came to watch the World Cup and the excitement that it generated and the parties that it was nothing."
The reason why I started playing soccer way back in grade school.
Like they'd ever seen before, right? You can have your tailgates and you can be a Jets fan and you can do that, or Cleveland or wherever, you know, I don't even know where these parties exist, like Indy, I don't know. But I will say this, we impressed those NFL folks enough that they would buy into a league. Now, why?
Or impressed or worried, concerned, those NFL folks, where they're like, we might have to put a bottle on this.
Hey, did they buy into the league? To control it out of fear. Let's just be honest and just say that out loud. So these folks, you know, protecting what was so near and dear to them, and that's the NFL, they looked at their schedule and they said, well, we start in September and we essentially finish in February. So soccer, how do you guys feel about if we finish in February, what do we just start in March?
Yeah, just fit in there. Why not? You know, you could just take over where where the football ends and the soccer begins.
And that's what we did. It really is that simple, folks. I mean, I'm trying to put this in the most simplistic of terms for you so you can understand why soccer is in the pocket that it's in. Because the NFL guys said two things. Hey, we'd love to have some of these games happen in the stadium so we can figure out a way to make money off. It's mainly the crafts at that point. But the truth is they needed to control this thing because they didn't understand it just yet. And this was an investment not in Major League Soccer as much as it was in protecting the brand of the NFL. Now,
I see that. You see that fully, and that continues today in the way that MLS is running its business and comporting itself, and the way that they've refused to move the schedule for years and years and years now. This has been a topic of discussion for years, and it's always been suggested as one of the reasons that MLS gets held back in the transfer market. And if you're going to check out another video that I'm going to put up potentially a little later, I'm going to be reacting to a Bruce Arena video where he's going to be talking about the types of players that might be coming to MLS after World Cup 2026. But we'll get into that in another video. Check it out here. So make sure you guys subscribe to Enemies of the Fire just for more of that action. Greatly appreciate you guys hanging around here and kicking this and watching with us and getting into the soccer discussion.
Now, let's just flash forward 30 years and say, all right, who owns this thing now?
It's been happening for 30 years and nothing's changed. And this is something that very simply could have changed within year 1, year 2, year 3 and get in a line. But because it's become this type of tradition almost, I feel like a lot of MLS purists are a bit reluctant to want to move schedules. Comments below if you agree or disagree.
Not the same people. You could even argue that all of this soccer-specific stadium bullshit was about you have to have a stadium, you have to have, those stadiums are great. They're great. But did you ever ask yourself the fundamental question of, hey, how come we haven't built a stadium big enough to have a World Cup event?
Whoa, the Zoom?
Because the guys who are doing this don't want you to get the payday when the World Cup comes back. They need that 85,000 seat stadium so that they can figure it out. Those guys in Chicago may have figured out that that's what they were up to, so they get to double up on the payday. But
the funny thing about that is Chicago Soldier Field is not going to be featured in the 2026 World Cup. So that's not happening for Chicago anyway, but it is happening for other places. Kansas City, where are they going to be playing? Arrowhead Stadium. New York, where are they going to be playing? MetLife, where the Giants and the Jets play. Miami, where are they going to be playing? Exactly. So all these football guys, all these football owners, still very much involved in this upcoming World Cup, despite not being owners in MLS. And then meanwhile, MLS owners holding the bag for MLS, left out in the cold predominantly.
Here's the thing. Looking at what Major League
And also, Joe Mansueto does not own Soldier Field or anything like that. That the Chicago Fire moved to Soldier Field.
Soccer is now, and looking at the history, let's just take you back. Let's take you back to year one. Here's a picture of 1996.
Alexei!
That's my good buddy, Alexi Lawless, trying to sing the national anthem in a Northeastern. Okay, at that point, we should have realized, okay, maybe this isn't a good idea. This isn't the way soccer should be played when the weather is this horrible. But that's the way the weather is always going to be at that time of year. Now, the reason why I showed you the map, let's show it to you again. Here it is, sliding in. Look at all of the places like
Mexico has parts of Africa in it. There's parts of Africa that would be in America. I mean, if you just move the parallels over. And this isn't a true apples to apples comparison as far as weather, because I mean, yes, there's wind currents, there's ocean currents, there's all sorts of geography features that actually impact weather along the way to Europe and America that changes some of the temperatures, what have you. But there seems to be a lot of overlap here, and it seems pretty surprising.
like Italy, right? France, Germany, Spain. Basically, I learned something when I did this. I went back to fourth grade as well. And I realized that California essentially is Morocco. How about that? So basically, when you do the latitude of these kind of things, what you realize is that our country is in a better place than Europe. Look at it. Look at it again. Look at where you might have lived. Look at Norway, for crying out loud. Bodo Glimt. Those guys are actually in the semifinals of the Conference League in Europa. How about that? Pretty cool, right? They played in snow and they beat Lazio.
Sick.
But they still have a functioning league. Now, is that me saying, hey,
And don't we love that in NFL football games, those snow games?
hey, we should play in snow?
Although the snow games in soccer are, albeit super, super rough to watch. I mean, yeah, there's the occasional banger, but typically it's a bit of a slog. And then to be a fan in that stadium, it is miserable. I've been there for a Chicago Fire opener or few where it is just ice and snow everywhere. It's snowing during the game.
Oh, no, they're playing in snow right now. But when they get to the culmination at the end of their season, you might be being able to take your shirt off if you are in Norway or Sweden. Why is that?
Wild.
Because they finish their season at the appropriate time when the weather is cooperating. Now, due to the fact that we no longer
they have nicer looking final. They have they don't have a playoff final like America does, but the end of the season played in some pretty pleasant weather, unlike MLS.
Have a bunch of puppet masters control.
And it's funny because it's the total inverse for football. Football starts in pretty decent weather, nice fall weather, still pretty all right. And then it gets just colder and colder and colder. Like turning up the heat, but in reverse, turning it down.
Controlling Major League Soccer, and we have, I guess, fundamentally a bunch of ownership groups who have their own business plan, and they have invested a ton of money into this, and they want to see it be successful. It surprises me that it took 30 years for them to do an independent study through some group called Sportico to figure out that 28 out of 29 owners were like, why aren't we doing this? These are smart people who have invested a lot of money into something, and they're asking the question, why? And this is the why. This is the explanation of why our league is going to stagnate until we make the move. Now, I think I've proven
I think it might be even worse than what Eric's saying here, because I think the league is at risk of stagnating to the point where USL will overtake them very, very, very quickly in a surprising fashion, to the point where we're all going to be like whiplashed to what happens. But that's just a prediction.
my point geographically, right? I think you now see it. And so the next time I get a call or if somebody hits the show and you're from New England and you say, this is impossible. It is possible. Look at this. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the map.
Yeah.
You're looking at the map. It is very possible.
I think
and it's something that you need to reconsider. So stop.
I think it's more possible than some of the critics have really fought against it, because when you see this map, I mean, like I said earlier, not apples to apples, but It's pretty darn close. And then I'm sure if we look at the average temperatures of these places during the same times, it'll probably be pretty darn close.
Being ignorant, stop being stupid, and stop making that argument that the weather is the problem. Now, let's get to the real root of the problem. Originally, soccer was manipulated by the folks that didn't want anything as a detriment to their cash cow, which was the NFL, which we know starts in September and goes all the way until February, culminating with the Super Bowl. By the way, you ever notice that? Do they play the Super Bowl in any of these in February, in any of these climates where you could possibly be Tom Brady drops back into the snow and his arm kind of moved and then spiked it into the ground. We talk about it's like a legendary deal. I got news for you. As legendary as that is, and as historic as that was, nobody wants their legacy decided in the snow. Nobody.
And that's why the only reason Chicago Bears are looking, well, one of the main reasons that they're looking at a new stadium is so they can potentially host a Super Bowl. The only way that's going to happen in Chicago or Arlington Heights, which is the location that they've also are scouting and have purchased, is if that new Chicago Bears stadium is in a dome. It's the only way. And it has to have 75,000 plus, maybe 80,000 plus. There's a seating capacity minimum that these Super Bowl stadiums have to meet as well. And Soldier Field is actually one of the smaller stadiums in the NFL, which is wild because Chicago Blackhawks have one of the larger stadiums in the NHL, as do the Bulls. And but yet the Bears, just like the Chicago Blackhawks being an original 6 franchise for the NHL, the Chicago Bears are one of the staple franchises of the NFL, but yet they don't seem to have the seating capacity to really meet the city's needs. And they haven't for a while.
He wants that. And even the NFL is smart enough to say, okay, let's put our Super Bowl somewhere where sporting merit will decide who the best football team is, not the weather. And that's why they go to Arizona. That's why they go to California or Florida or somewhere where the weather is going to cooperate, because that sucks. Right? I mean, is your legacy like the difference between playing in the snow and everybody's slipping around on ice and it's all going to come down to?
I mean, the conference championship games might happen in those types of environments, and it makes for some amazing football. But then you do get that pure game at the end of the season, which us football fans love.
This 355-pound guy can pick up the ball quicker. Is that what you want to be remembered for? No. That's what the playoffs are for. That's what regular season games are for, but certainly not the Super Bowl. Now, do we have a Super Bowl? No. Am I making the suggestion that we will ever have that? No, I don't think we'll ever get to that point. But the smartest thing we can do is start our season at the appropriate time and finish it at a time where we're not going to have all of the weather challenges. Okay.
And without looking it up, what time do you guys think MLS should start and finish? What approximate month do you think MLS should start and finish? Should it be kind of in line with England? Maybe August to April, end of April / May, early May?
Done with that topic.
End of May. Something like that, May.
We good? You understand? If you're making the argument and you looked at the map, right now you're kind of scratching your head saying, wow, I wish I would have paid attention in 5th grade. Maybe I would have known this coming in. Now you do. That's what this show's about. We're trying to educate people. Now, the most important...
Thanks, Coach Winalda. Greatly appreciate it. We're definitely getting a good education from Coach Winalda. And that's why I like watching his videos. And I love bringing them to you guys, the audience, because talking about this stuff sets more fire to it, puts more smoke out there, and spreads the conversation, and gets, frankly, more soccer fans talking about the subject that needs to be discussed.
Important part about all of this, and was also a part of the manipulation of our game, was the realities of finishing the season when nobody was watching. Now, I have plenty of contacts. I have worked in the industry for close to 20 years, meaning I was a part of...
And the funny thing, I would say, is if I think about EPL, some of the times that people are most watching is in the middle of the season, because that's when the quote-unquote, the race for the trophy is at its most fervent, right? Where MLS, it had a steep drop-off after the first few games. It just cratered. They are not attracting eyes. Their TV numbers have been abysmal, absolutely abysmal, where USL and NWSL TV numbers lately on over-the-air television have competed with and bested MLS games. Not a good look for a 30-year-old league with a history now that they can actually draw upon.
To Fox and ESPN. I've been in the room, right? I've listened to the conversations about how this actually works. Why the Apple deal, for example, is not ever going to work. It is global.
Broken.
Right? It is this idea that you can sell the game globally, but is what it is really missed. The point is each one of these local markets needed an opportunity to have a local broadcast, to sell time. It is
Yes, they started with the international idea at first because, I mean, the subscription focus moves away from local fans. It's like, oh, we're the Messi channel now. And so like, oh, you over in Spain, oh, you over in Croatia, you over in Germany, you over in Japan. You're interested in watching a little Messi. I know you're a Messi fan, get the Messi channel. And that's kind of how MLS TV is. It's really not, it doesn't really seem to have a lot of connection to the local team. Like, at all. I'm not watching Chicago Fire on Fox 32 out here in Chicago and that type of stuff. And that makes it harder for casuals to find it and to connect, and they have lost interest. Like, the connection, I think, has just disappeared. My brother, season ticket holder with me for years, started our old podcast, which led to this podcast way back in 2017, 2018. So it's been a while, but even he has fallen off as far as paying attention to the fight. It's just not worth his time. And maybe it's more so an MLS problem because the product that MLS is putting out there is not really maintaining interest. The product is it's a glorified wrestling game, but that's a lot of American sports. But yet somehow there's some sort of disconnect here for me, the soccer fan, where I can watch the NFL, I can watch the NBA, I can watch the NHL, I can watch the MLB and watch a game and know I'm watching these guys try hard. Well, typically it's more so in the playoffs, right? That they're trying even harder. And that was highlighted for NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, and even in that short All-Star Four Nations tournament that NHL put on recently. But that type of stuff is where you see players try. If sure, you see players trying in MLS, but they know about promotion relegation. They know they're not getting relegated. They know they're in a league and a team where their pressure is not nearly as high as the pressure they had felt when they were playing back at Man United, back at Bayern Munich, back at name the Swiss team, name the Belgian team. Put it in the comments below. That's the problem.
It's about marketing and the commercialization of the sport. And we missed the window when we went the Apple deal. It's the reason why most of the people who have paid for the advertising for Apple are saying this.
And most of the fans who have paid for full subscriptions, like me, asking that question at the beginning of this podcast, are like, what am I paying this for? If you're just giving it away.
Isn't good enough. We're not getting enough eyeballs because they're not. We need the ability to get in front of people who are a captive audience. And that's why they're going back to Fox. That's why they're going back to networks. I still can't commend CBS enough because they really are understanding an opportunity and grabbing with both hands and saying, all right, we do have a captive audience. We're going to go the UEFA route, if you will. We're going to be able to put the sport on television, but they've also figured out a way locally to promote the game. Meaning, when the show is on in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm watching all of the local commercials. If you've ever thought about that, when you watch, I'm here in Las Vegas, right? So when the Raiders go on the national broadcast, I'm not watching a national commercial. I'm watching, my buddies over there at Finley who are bought up all the time. And basically you're being reminded that you can buy a car in Las Vegas and here's where you want to buy it. Maybe that's a grocery store. Maybe that's
you remember 555832900 Empire 58. And you know the number.
Maybe it's one of these accident lawyers who seemingly have bought up a lot of the
Is that Eagle Man?
time. But regardless, those people have spent money to buy the time to be a part of that commercial. We don't do that. Now, the USL is in a very different pocket. And this is why I think that.
And the USL has not backed itself into a corner like MLS has, because MLS, by taking these significant, exorbitant fees for these teams to buy into the league, 250 million, 500 million, 550 million, it's the conversation for promotion relegation is just a non-starter because these teams did not sign up for that. And to put that amount of investment is just insane for it to be at risk so quickly. So MLS has backed itself into a corner where USL is able to take major advantage.
You know, those folks over there are doing a pretty good job because they did not take away the local broadcast. They did not take away the opportunity for the people who didn't come to the game to be able to see the game, have local broadcast.
Oh, like dollar bill worked. So the Blackhawks, look that one up.
And for the inclusion of raising money, if you will, through the commercialization of those breaks. They are doing it right. That's the bottom line. USL is doing it right. Major League Soccer is tripping all over themselves. So the USL in their model is actually the best way to do it because they're in far more markets than Major League Soccer.
Nobody's even, a lot of MLS players don't even consider that. The MLS limited to what, 29 teams right now? Maybe 30 or 32 tops. USL has like 200 plus teams. They're nationwide. I mean, MLS is nationwide, but it's not as comparable to USL.
And they are taking advantage of the captivated audience, which is the local broadcast. You can't achieve that with Apple. You can't achieve that with most streaming ideas. Like the stream idea is great. It's a global audience and you can get more eyeballs maybe, but you can't sell it. You can't sell it because you don't know who you're selling it to. When you do the local broadcast, which is what Major League Soccer decided last year to take away and to tell all those people who had an identified voice, and they were, and there's I could mention a bunch of names right now, but these guys basically and women lost their jobs because Apple decided that they wanted to make this global, and then basically all those folks who were the voice of their team basically had to go find a new job.
So and then also think about all those advertising dollars that used to go to the various TV stations, and where's that advertising money going now for those companies that used to be buying spots around MLS games?
Some of them went to Apple, but some of them are still looking for a job. And in some of those markets, it's quite sad because that was a better way to market your team. And it surprises me that a lot of these folks who run these teams are not figuring this out, understanding that this Apple deal seemingly made sense from the onset, as long as Messi is here. As soon as he disappears, I think Apple will go away as well.
Oh, I was predicting this before I even heard Eric saying this. I don't see a reason for Apple TV to stay around. Maybe you do in the comments. Maybe you guys do or are watching. See a reason for Apple TV to stay around. Toke certainly does when we talk about it on the podcast. He thinks that their Apple TV has greater sites trying to bring NFL. But that's my point. Like if they're just losing money on MLS, like they're a business. Like at some point they're going to cut their losses. It's just what they have to do as a business and to meet their bottom line and to make their investors happy.
Well, and they'll go back to the traditional model. And I hope some of my friends get their jobs back because those local broadcasts are they are the lifeblood of the sport. They truly are. And it allows the sport to grow organically and not, on the offset chance that everyone's watching. I mean, look at the Tyson fight, for example. That was just a way to figure out whether Netflix had the bandwidth to be able to do this in the first place. And they found out that, no, they don't. No. But who's going to buy time on that? Who are you buying time for? No one's figured that out.
Did you guys watch that Tyson Jake Paul fight? Let us know in the comments. Yeah, we tried. And then I think, what was it? Thanks to AB, the football player, the former Pittsburgh Steeler, who has a lot of concussions. I think he broadcasted on his Twitter, and that's how I watched it. It was freaking wild.
Figured out how the streaming component of this can hit the local markets because there aren't enough buttons to push just yet. The only way to do this is the traditional model because it works. All right, speaking of tradition, and when it comes to the schedule, going back, we've conquered that idea that the weather isn't the problem. Good? We're good. Now, the reason why the weather isn't the problem is because we want to finish our season in a time where these guys' legacies are going to be decided on who was the better soccer team, not who could handle the icy conditions better. Okay? I think we're good there. Great. It also opens up the window over summer, which is very important. Now, here's the calendar. Okay, here's my suggestion. Okay, this is the way that we the way we do things. I'm already talking about it in past tense. This is the way we do things. We start here, we play right through the summer, and then we finish at the end of the year, December 7th through the 10th, somewhere in there. It's a crapshoot, man, of whether we're going to get good weather. We actually got really, really lucky. Well, I say we, but Major League Soccer got really lucky because it was New York versus Los Angeles, and Los Angeles got to play in Los Angeles. And we got perfect weather in December, and it's like, damn it, we avoided New York, which was frozen in that moment, by the way. But because of the way it worked out and their throughout the season, they had the better strength of schedule, and they won more games, and they got home field advantage.
I think Red Bulls were also the 8th seed, and Galaxy were the 1 seed.
How lucky. You dodged the bullet there. Guess what? Your overall audience was worse than the USL's final. Okay. And the USL's final was Rhode Island. I don't know if that even compares to.
Never heard of that state.
A borough in New York. I mean, I don't even think it's even close. I mean, it's so small. It goes against everything that we believe. You got to be in the big markets. New York, Los Angeles. This is going to be great. Everyone's going to watch. It was the same thing with the World Series, and it did work. A lot of people wanted to see that. Not with our sport. Rhode Island played against Colorado Springs. And here's the funny part. They almost had a number triple the size of what Major League Soccer's final
Ripple
was. So MLS Cup had 1/3 of the people watching that the lower division had. There's a lot of things to unpack there, okay? When Major League Soccer is trying to do their final, and they're trying, this is a culmination of everyone's work. This is the best 2 teams. Here we go. We're going to crown a champion today. And people are like, but Ohio State's playing. I got to watch that. Or they could, if we try to stay away from the Sundays, right? But if you run into the wrong time and the wrong time slot, you're going to have a big collegiate football game right up against you. And now you're looking for a window where you can hopefully get somebody's attention. After they've already watched 2 football games, you want them to watch MLS Cup. They're probably barbecuing by then, man. They're out. They're done. They don't want anything to do. I can't barbecue. It's too damn cold for that. I think I just proved that, damn it. Now you got me confused. Bottom line is we got to have that final in May. It's got to be at the end of May. The rest of the world does it that way for a reason. If you want me to pull up that map again and show you.
By the way, the rest of the world usually doesn't have finals in May for their leagues if they don't have the playoffs. However, a lot of their cups, they have various cups that are going on throughout the year, and that's what he's referring to.
There's a reason why Europe does things the way they do, because it doesn't make sense to try and play a final in December. It will never make sense. And since we are no longer under the umbrella of NFL with a bunch of people controlling our every move, and we have real ownership groups who are asking real questions about how do we improve the sport and how do we get that captivated audience and how do we present ourselves in a better way, they've all come to the conclusion that changing the schedule is the best way to do it. And I'm proud of them. I'm happy that this is the direction that we're going to go. They're trying to have a vote on it. This is where everybody starts, lobbying one way or another. And there's plenty of reasons why some people want to keep it just the way it is. I mean, ask Blockbuster. They were like, nope, we're going to keep that. You went out of business. It kind of.
And in comes Netflix. But where do you guys stand on this right now? Where are you guys standing in this? Do you, as the fan who's going to be paying for money to either watch on TV or to go to the stadium during these temperatures? And to Eric's point, where you're already going in February and March, and then also November and December. What if that flipped? What if the only cold weather months you were going were, well, that'd still be almost 4 months, right? I mean, you got November, December, January, February. At least that's 4 super cold months, and that's not including that lousy Smarch weather that we all know.
Everything kind of went digital. Can we just grow up, get with the times, and figure out that this is a better business plan? I hope so. Every single GM that I've spoken to, every single coach, every single president is like, this is a good idea.
Yep.
Sportico did their independent study. And they discovered the same thing, something that we've known for a long time, that if we want to engage in the real business of football, and that means the movement of players, the buying and selling of contracts, and we've made some big steps in the right direction there. We need to open up that window so these people can actually do the real work of soccer and move players at the appropriate time and give themselves enough time to recover. The way it works right now is you have coaches who have lost their jobs, lose their best player in June because that's the timeline of when the transfer window opens, and basically don't have enough time to recover.
And then your team falls apart. Your talisman's gone, like the spark of your team. You lose Almiron, and you're not winning the championship anymore.
They just simply don't. And they're asking a coach who will lose 2 or 3 of their best players in the same week to figure it out on the fly. And what I mean by not enough time to recover is they got a game next week. They don't have a month before their next game. They got a game next week. So they got to figure out who that replacement is, get them in, and they hit the ground running and they play. It usually results in a lot of confusion, an acclimation period that lasts a little bit longer, and sometimes even injury, which is really a big problem because most of these European players or players that are playing somewhere else are like, are we still playing? It's June and July. Aren't we supposed to be in break? I thought this is when FIFA took over and everybody. And MLS guys are like, nope, we're going to play right through that. They actually got to the point where they created Leagues Cup to do this thing with the Mexicans to figure out how they could deal with the summer months. Because what they realized, and what we've known since day one, is that when you look at the schedule, when you ask any GM about selling tickets, he'll tell you, when you say, what's the hardest time to sell a ticket? To fill your stadium? He'll tell you, oh man, June, July is really rough. And you would say, well, why is that?
Did you hear that, everybody? June, July, some of the hardest times to sell an MLS ticket. Baseball, the beach, going outside. MLS has a lot to compete with.
There is cooperating. I mean, it's actually nice. I mean, why aren't people coming? It's actually a little bit too hot. Look at the map again. California is basically Morocco. Africa, that's pretty hot. So I get that part of it, but the problem is that when you deal with the summer months and the kids are out of school, people have options. They prioritize. They can have the ability to go on vacation. Mm-hmm. A soccer game isn't something that really is this glowing red deal on their calendar.
And if you think about it, I mean, like sports, what are they typically? They're like a nice distraction. You're in the middle of the work week or something. There's a ball game on at the end of the day. You put it on, or say it's the fall, the winter when you got NFL games every weekend. Every weekend you got a solid slate of NFL games to look forward to during the slog of your job, if that's the way it is, right? But meanwhile, summer, when a lot of people are off, the kids are off, when people are not so much as stuck at home and needing that relief, needing that little dose of dopamine, they're free. They're more free in summer to be able to find things that they really like to do. And watching MLS game in the heat doesn't seem to be one of them.
They basically are like, oh, you guys want to go to the beach or do you want to go to a soccer game?
Beach. Easy call.
Do you guys want to go to to an amusement park? You guys want to go on a vacation? You want to go camping? Or do you want to go to a soccer game? When people have new options over the summer, what all these folks have realized is that they're not coming to soccer games. It's something to learn. It's something to grow from, but this is how you change it. Again, changing the schedule will essentially be a solution to that problem. Now, the best part...
Do you think that changing the schedule will increase fan attendance and maybe even fan attention and retention for MLS? Let me know in the comments.
And if you look at let's look at it one more time. I've highlighted this little area because if you really look at what happens in the month of July prior to an August start in Europe, what's happening is all those teams are the Manchester Uniteds of the world. The AC...
Shout out. That looks like a nice looking watch.
Milans, you name it. It could be Barcelona, it could be Real Madrid. They come to the United States to do what? To build their brand, to try and captivate that audience with being here and being a part of this machine that they have become that has figured out a way to get more people interested in their brand who are in the United States. Look at the map again. The United States is bigger than Europe. It's like the size of Europe and a little bit of Russia, for crying out loud. We're big. We're massive. We're huge. So it makes sense that all these teams come over, but why aren't we figuring out a way to make that the greatest marketing tool that we have? Why not invite those folks to a game in late July or in August for that matter, when we're not playing games, right? We're in the middle of our preseason too. We're always afraid to play them because we can't play those guys. Well, maybe if we play them in their preseason, it'll be an even game because they're obviously better than us. We're not in a pocket of fear anymore, and we shouldn't be. But what we need to do is to understand these opportunities to actually showcase our sport, our league, our players, for crying out
I mean, Piotr Nowak beat Chelsea way back when.
loud, and play those games and make people understand that, hey, that was cool. I enjoyed that. Some of those first-time folks who wanted to see some famous player from Europe play are introduced to 6, 7, 8 players who play in Major League Soccer, and they're like, that kid's good. That was entertaining. I want to watch that. We're missing that window. We've created a competition with Leagues Cup, which is basically gets in the way, is more problematic than helpful, and it's simply because all of these GMs realizes they can't sell the games. So what do? They said, well, what if we open it up to Mexico and just tapped into that audience? They never go away. Didn't work. It didn't work. You know it. I know it. It didn't work. And it ended up being a huge problem for a lot of players who should have been resting. They shouldn't have been asked to get on airplanes and go from Miami to Vancouver twice. They shouldn't have been asked to do that. Some of those things that when we talk about the overall health of our players, the schedule conquers a lot of those problems. And if we can figure out a way to put a television deal together to entertain the idea of getting back in local markets, this sport can grow. For now, we are in a permanent state of stagnation. I've talked about mediocrity.
And that permanent stagnation could really lead to collapse.
And that's really about promotion and relegation. But that's not what today's conversation is about. Today's conversation is the stagnation of our sport. The way to conquer that is to change the schedule. I hope this was helpful. I'm looking forward to your responses.
Go check that video out if you like to. That is on Goals TV. MLS is Broken by Eric Winalda. Great video, great discussion. Eric always bringing the facts, the ideas. Let us know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with this proposal? Do you think that it's the wise decision to change the schedule and change it fast? Maybe get this in as soon as possible. Is there other things that can be done? Will it help reduce injuries? Will it increase retention? Will it increase attention? Will it increase fans showing up at the games and still coming to the games throughout the end of the season? Will it help competition? Will it help these players get more launch boards to career-defining moves abroad sometimes, maybe even internally in MLS? Because in a future video I'm going to release about Bruce Arena, it sounds like parity might be going away in MLS, but that's for another video. Make sure you guys subscribe for Enemies of the Fire. We'll catch you guys next time. Kick that like button, punt it. We'll catch you guys next time. Let us know how you feel. See ya.